beaches, lighthouses, tulip time, Dutch Village and Windmill Island, Hope College, the birth of WWJD bracelets, my fellow 90s kids know what I'm talking about, an awesome Civil War muster in the fall at Van Raalte Park. Most Michiganders know the city that includes all of those things, Holland. Located on the shores of Lake Macatawa and just minutes away from Lake Michigan, it is a beautiful tourist destination. Known for being settled by Dutch immigrants, it still boasts much heritage from the Netherlands, more than just the name. Even today, many individuals in West Michigan, myself included, claim a Dutch ancestry. Holland has quite the interesting history, as does its founder, Reverend Albertus Van Raalte, which is the topic of today's video. I'm here this weekend at that aforementioned Civil War muster located at the Van Raalte Farm Park, a beautiful place to hike, but also a lot of cool history. So let's learn more about this town founder. Albertus Van Raalte was born in October 17, 1811 in Winnipeg, Netherlands. Not much has been recorded about his early life, but we do know that he was married in 1836 to Christina de Moon. That same year, he was also ordained a minister in the Secession Church, a part of the Dutch Reformed clergy. In the Netherlands, the Dutch Reformed Church had become the national church of the country, but the church split in the 1830s. Differences in theology and a lack of farmland in the Netherlands led many members of the church, including Van Raalte, to start thinking of immigrating. And in the fall of 1846, he and 53 other Dutch settlers left Rotterdam, bound for New York City. Traveling with Van Raalte was his wife and the 5 children they had at the time. Luckily, the winter weather came late, and the group was able to travel further inland than they expected. They spent the winter in Detroit, and many of the men found work at the shipyards there in St. Clair. When the weather lightened, Van Raalte and a few other leaders set out to search for land. They traveled to Kalamazoo and were then taken to Allegan by dog sled by the pioneer Judge John Kellogg. Once there, they met Reverend George Smith, M.I. Coit, and Reverend Oya Hoyt, who convinced Van Raalte to settle in West Michigan. It was a more established area, it had better education and more religious people, and would be a much better location for his religious colony than Wisconsin, which was the original plan. Van Raalte decided to settle on Black Lake, now Lake Macatawa. Kellogg told Van Raalte he could buy the land for $1.25 per acre, a great deal. Moving to unsettled land was unique, as at the time, most European immigrants would go to the big cities, not just settle their own colony. Van Raalte and fellow Dutchmen arrived in what is now the Holland area on February 9, 1847. Religious services were immediately held. The land was covered in swampy forests and was infested with insects. Van Raalte purchased many acres of land to use for the economy of his colony. Most of this land would be farmed. Having good foresight, Van Raalte tried to get the government to build a canal from Black Lake to Lake Michigan, but received nothing. Knowing that they needed access to the Great Lakes in order to have good commerce, the immigrants simply grabbed the tools that they needed and dug the channel themselves. Knowing there were still struggles in the homeland, including an economic depression, Van Raalte sent a handbill advertising that land was available for sale, and as a result, many young men and families moved to the fruitful land. Within 3 years of the initial arrival of the 53 colonists, the Dutch population grew to 5,000 people. Van Raalte was the unquestioned leader of this group, especially spiritually. One of the first buildings erected was a log church. Up until then, services were held out of doors. As with most settlements, it was a rough first year, especially with no doctors in the settlement. Van Raalte brought medicine and used what basic medical skills he had, but many settlers, mostly adults, still died, leaving many orphans. Van Raalte built an orphanage, but these orphans were quickly adopted, and so the building was turned into a school. Albertus and his pioneers continued to build their Christian community. They worked hard to make the swampy area as successful as possible. Van Raalte established more churches as well as schools, created a Dutch language newspaper, and wrote Dutch language books. In 1850, he donated land for a college, and by the next year, the Pioneer School was established. This would eventually become Hope College. In the 1860s, war came to America, and though there was no fighting in Michigan, the people of Holland were still affected. Albertus van Raalte was very much against slavery and strongly supported Abraham Lincoln and the Republican Party. Two of his sons, Benjamin and Dirk, fought for the 25th Michigan Regiment, and both returned home from the fight. I will be talking more about Michigan's contributions to the Civil War in a later video. Unfortunately, after the war, Van Raalte saw his ideal, harmonious Christian community start to unravel. On March 25, 1876, Holland was incorporated as a city, which took much control of that group away from the religious leadership and into secular hands. Around the same time, the religious unity of the community was shattered when a man named Gisbert Hagen led an exodus from the Dutch Reformed Church. He claimed that the religion was too lax under current leadership. Later that year, Van Raalte retired from pastoral life, citing poor health, yet he still continued to help lead the city in many other ways. In Holland, the rest of the 19th century saw much growth, and in West Michigan at large. By 1871, railroad spurs extended into Holland. The growth was stunted in October of 1871 when a great fire swept through much of the Midwest, including Holland. I'll probably do a video on that later as well. Many homes and businesses were destroyed, but with encouragement and leadership from Van Raalte, the city was able to rebuild. This did happen over several years and introduced a telephone system, public water system, electrical services, and free mail delivery. In 1876, Albertus van Raalte died at the age of 65, but his legacy, fortunately, lives on. His home is now Van Raalte Farm Park, which includes a nature preserve and recreation area with hiking trails, all on the Black River. It also includes Van Raalte Historic Home, which was built by Albertus' son Benjamin. The house overlooks outbuildings, pastures, and beautiful woodlands. At the excellent Civil War muster, visitors can experience living history encampments, talk with historians, buy some books, and other wares, of course, and watch a Civil War battle. Holland, Michigan has an exciting, rich history that continues to flourish today with its tourism, festivals, and parks. And though it never became the ideal Christian community that Albertus van Raalte dreamed of, it has played an integral role in the religious and secular history of West Michigan. Have you been able to visit Holland? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification button. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.